Good afternoon, Covidians. Saturday afternoon, time to start with a nice cup of tea. Remember, for fox's sake, stop hunting. Cheers to all of you. That lovely refreshment out of the way. Let's begin. So, the policeman that raped and killed a woman has been sentenced to a life sentence in which we're told life really will mean life. That's what we've been told. I don't know if that will actually happen. It's extremely rare. Killers like, I believe, was it Dennis Nielsen or whatever, was up for parole? I can't quite remember. But I'll tell you what, and it's really significant to me, because by my first wife, I have two amazing sons. Amazing. They're great. Don't really need to tell you anything about them, except they're fully grown. And I and their mother are very proud of them, and I'm sure they know many people, have many friends, work with many people, and are loved and wanted and valued. But as a man, I've really been thinking about this whole idea of men together. Men expressing what I could only describe as toxic masculinity. Now, bearing in mind I was born in the 50s, grew up in the 60s and 70s, bearing in mind I remember feminists and everything like Germaine Greer. I remember Reclaim the Night. So, bearing in mind the time in which I grew up. But this concept, this idea of toxic masculinity seems to crop up quite a lot within the Tory party. Do you remember Chris Chope? Yeah, who managed to filibuster, in other words, talk out, a bill to prevent what was called upskirting. That is, people taking, as you imagine, photographs up women's or girls', maybe even children's skirts. I'm not saying it's exclusively men who would do this, but I have a feeling it probably would. Mr. Chope talked it out because he felt that everyone deserved a right to be able to do that. Do you remember another Tory dinner where a senior Tory, I'm bad with names, okay, but I think you'll get who it was. There were two protesters, two female protesters, who were protesting this dinner and what it stood for and what had been happening to women and women's rights and stuff like that. And this particular front row or thereabouts Tory, dressed in the old dinner jacket and black tie, rugby tackled this woman just in a sort of a plain dress, could not be carrying anything, armed with nothing, empty hands, rugby tackled her up against a wall like that, and of course the excuse was she might have been carrying a bomb. That again I think is toxic masculinity expressed, toxic masculinity defined, toxic masculinity. I don't know if any of you watch this on Netflix, but there is an absolutely brilliant series. I think it's more aimed at younger people, but it has got an 18 certificate, called 13 Reasons Why. Although it is fiction, it deals with the culture that led towards the rape and eventual suicide of a young girl called Hannah in an American high school. It deals with what in America they call the jock culture. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that even for Americans, to be good at sports, just as any of us could be good at any sport, and I mean men and women, boys and girls, right? I'm not saying that that's bad. But in these American high schools, there is this jock culture that, you've got to be a big, badass guy. A guy's got to demand, a guy's got to take, a guy's got to get, a guy's got to overpower. Yeah? Toxic masculinity. Toxic. Now, as men, how many of us, to some extent or other, from the world around us, from the culture, from society, even of what we've experienced of our parents, our own fathers and things when we were young and growing up, how many of us have internalized that? It's a question men need to ask ourselves. We need to ask that. But what I think is absolutely terrible, is stuff that's coming out now like, well, if a woman feels threatened by a police officer arresting her, hail a bus down. What? You can, well, I mean, apart from anything, what if you're not on a bus route, yeah? Or just ask the police officer if you can dial 999 on your phone, if they haven't already handcuffed you and taken it off you, to call for other officers to witness the arrest, or to call for female officers to be present. Yeah? I don't know. I think many of the Tories and people like them and powerful people are, well, as men, I think the masculinity that many of them express is toxic. I think Johnson is a bloody good example of that. Absolutely toxic, yeah? A man who said in public, and I began with fox hunting and I'm getting near the end now, a man who said with fox hunting, it gives him and I quote, a semi-sexual thrill. A sexual sadist, a male sexual sadist who is turned on by pain and abuse. Women, you have every reason to protest. You have every reason not to feel safe around our police force. Women, you most definitely do. And I stand with you. And men, I encourage you, seriously, to think about yourselves. And if you harbour any of this in any way, shape or form, I suggest that you examine yourselves and you get help. I'm certainly not saying that every man is a potential rapist. I guess, in a way, yes, we could be, absolutely, but we could be a potential good Samaritan. We could be a potential life saver, just as could every woman. Yeah. So I'm not saying that, but I am saying, men, be very, very careful when this kind of stuff is presented to you as something that you should achieve. I also think, and I wonder greatly, and I'm not being a prude here, I wonder how much, especially male orientated pornography, actually devalues and dehumanizes women, devalues and dehumanizes and objectifies. Yeah? Used to have the same debate about page 3 in The Sun. Oh, and by the way, don't forget, Labour was quite happy to have the Soraway scum at Labour conference. Take care, folks. Bye.